We begin today the Gemara Daf Daled Amud Aleph right at the beginning of the Amud, Rav Acha bar Yaakov. So we're discussing over here what it says in the Braise that just like regarding a neder, there's a halacha of Baal Ta'acher, not to delay the fulfillment of the neder. The same is regarding a Nazir, that there's also Baal Ta'acher. And the Gemara's question was, when it comes to a neder, we know what Baal Ta'acher means. If a person makes a neder to bring a carbon, you can't delay fulfilling that neder. And you have to bring the carbon before 3 Yomim Tovim pass. But when it comes to the Baal Ta'acher of a Nazir, how is that applied? The moment you accept upon yourself to be a Nazir, so you're a Nazir right away. You are. So there's no delaying this. So where's the application of Baal Ta'acher? Yesterday we learned one answer the Gemara says. Here the Gemara is going to bring another few answers. Right at the beginning of the Amud. Rav Acha bar Yaakov so Rav Acha bar Yaakov says the case here is as follows. Kogoin de Nodar, or the Bach changes it to the Nazar. He makes a neder to be a Nazir. But where is he? V'hu bebeis hakvaris. But he's in a beis hakvaris. So what happens here? One of the halachas of a Nazir is that you should not become tamei, right? Not drink the wine or grapes and so on, and also not to become tamei. And of course, the third thing is not to cut your hair. So here, this person is in the beis hakvaris. So now the naziris that he took upon himself did not take effect. So, in order for his naziris to take effect, he's going to have to leave the beis hakvaris, be metayer himself, and then the naziris will take effect. So, if he's going to stay in the beis hakvaris, or he's going to delay being metayer himself to allow his naziris to begin, that will be Baal Ta'acher. That's the scenario of Haya'ever and Baal Ta'acher. Understand?
As soon as he takes the naziris, and then he becomes tummy. Why can't he just become tummy as soon as he says he's in the beis hakvaris?
He's in the beis hakvaris, so because he's in the beis hakvaris, when he accepts upon himself to become a nazir, the naziris does not take effect. Since the requirement of the naziris is not to become tamei, if you accept upon yourself to be a nazir when you're in a place where the tumah is there, the naziris does not take effect. Now it lies upon you to get rid of this tumah as soon as possible to be able to become the nazir. And when you delay it, you're even Baal Ta'acher. But the Gemara here actually now is going to bring that this is not so simple. There's an argument about this, whether the naziris takes effect even in the beis hakvaris. So let's see. This would be a good answer according to the opinion that says Loi chayla alei naziris me'alter, that the naziris that he just took upon himself does not take effect immediately. We have to wait until he will be in the condition of tara for it to take effect. But there's another opinion that argues and says, immediately the naziris takes effect. Yes, he does have to go and be metayer himself, but the naziris does take effect immediately. So there's nothing to delay here. So the Baal Ta'acher does not apply at all. So miyek Baal Ta'acher, what kind of a Baal Ta'acher is there? That's one question. Furthermore, va'oid ha'ama Mar bar Avashi said about this argument that we just quoted, whether the naziris takes effect while the person is tamei or not, that really everybody agrees chayli naziris alei ma'alter, that when you take upon yourself to be a nazir in the beis hakvaris, the naziris takes effect immediately. We see that there's a machlekes about this. Their machlekes was just regarding the punishment. V'chi pligi le'inyam malchus pligi. The whole argument over here is only regarding malchus. If he's going to stay there in the beis hakvaris, whether he gets malchus for this, that he's being metam himself in the beis hakvaris or not. The one that says that it does not take effect says that for the tumeh, he's not going to get malchus, because when he took upon himself this naziris, he's here in the beis hakvaris. And the other opinion says that no, even though he was in the beis hakvaris when he took upon himself this naziris, but he's still going to get malchus for being matame himself. So it's just a question about the malchus. But whether the naziris itself that he took upon himself takes effect, everybody holds that it doesn't matter. Even if you're in the beis hakvaris, the naziris takes effect immediately. So if so, there is no Baal Ta'acher applicable here. So the Gemara says, not necessarily. We can say, afila hachi, nevertheless, kom le beBaal Ta'acher, the lav of Baal Ta'acher will be applied in this case, mishum de kama acher, naziris de tara, because he's delaying having the full-fledged naziris, the naziris with tara. What happens to this person? When he takes upon himself to be a nazir, he took upon himself full-fledged naziris, which includes also the detail of not being metami himself. So at this point, the naziris takes effect but he could only have the Naziris in effect partially, because this concept of not being Matami himself does not apply yet. You are Tommy when you took it upon yourself. So what are you going to have to do? You're going to have to go and be Matari yourself, and then you could start your full-fledged Naziris. So even though the Naziris took effect, but there will be Baal Ta'achir if you're going to delay being Matari yourself to allow the full-fledged Naziris to take effect. So therefore there is the concept of Baal Ta'achir here.
If you're using the Svar, you can say the Svar all the way around. The fact that I'm in the basic course and I'm tummy is alright, but I don't mean it now.
But okay, I hear what you're saying. But when a person takes upon himself the lashon that he says, apparently the lashon the person says Harei ni nazir, and he doesn't give any stipulations what aspect of the naziris it takes. The naziris that he said means the full naziris. That's what you have to say.
Yeah, but
so you need to state the stipulation. Then
if you would want it to be a partial naziris, okay, there's different halachas in naziris. Here,
it's not a question of partial naziris. I don't remember about all cases, but there are cases where we say since it can't be that way, then he means something else.
Okay, could be. Amar Avashi. So now, based on this point that we just said, that this person which is in the Beis HaKvaris, so the only reason he's over Baal Ta'acher is because, even though he's already a Nazir, but because there's a certain aspect of the Naziris that he now can't fulfill, that is the Baal Ta'acher. So Rav Ashi says, based on this, Hoyol v'chein, if so, Nazir shetim me'atzmei b'mezid, a Nazir that goes ahead and intentionally is metame himself. So what happens? He's already a Nazir, but now he was Matami himself. So now he compromises his Naziris. Mm-hmm. What happens in the case of Nazir is Matami himself? So he's still a Nazir, but the halacha then is he's going to have to start over his Naziris because it's a compromised Naziris. So in such a case as well, Oiver Mishum Baal Ta'acher, he's also going to be Oiver on Baal Ta'acher, that he's delaying the fulfillment of his Neder to be a Nazir. What is that? The Naziris is Tara, the full Naziris of Tara. Right? So as it's pointed out here, I think the Ran says, even though a person that is over and goes and is metame himself, there's a lav. A nazir is not allowed to be metame himself. I think there's actually more than one lav, he says, that you're over on. But here, Rav Ashi is mechadish that you're actually going to be over on a third lav of Baal Ta'acher. The very fact that you're being metame yourself and you're delaying the fulfillment of your naziris, betara, that itself is a Baal Ta'acher. Another pshat the Gemara now says, Rav Ache bereid Rav Ika Amar. Another place that we could apply the Baal Ta'acher delaying your naziris regarding a nazir. So Amar, he said, Oiver beval Ta'acher tiglachtai. Well, Oiver Baal Ta'acher, if it's regarding the taglachas by a nazir, when his days of naziris are up, how does it conclude? He has to bring karbanis. We have to bring actually a chatas, a oila, and a shlomim, 3 karbanis, and then he has to also shave off all his hair. So this person that's going to be ma'acher the taglachas, he's not going to fulfill this mitzvah of taglachas. So that's Baal Ta'acher. If he delays it, he's over for delaying the completion of his naziris by doing this taglachas. Says the Gemara. Now, there's actually an argument about this. This taglachas, you see over here, every single stage, every single step the Gemara says there's always various opinions. So the same thing here with this taglachas. This mitzvah of shaving your hair at the end of the naziris, is that actually a requirement? Says the Gemara, it is an argument, but not. Needless to say, according to the opinion that says taglachas ma'akeves, that the shaving of the hair, that's something which is ma'akiv. It's the carbon and the completion of the naziris does not take effect unless you do the taglachas. So then we understand, if you delay this, you're being over on Baal Ta'acher. You're delaying an integral part of the naziris. Yeah. But even according to the opinion that the taglachas is not ma'akiv, it's not integral to the completion of the naziris. Even without this, the naziris will be complete. But nevertheless, it is a mitzvah. Mitzvahs giluach mi'olei mekayim. He didn't fulfill this mitzvah. The Torah is saying when you complete your naziris, the last step of completing your naziris is to shave all the hair. First, you let your hair grow. That's all the days of the naziris. Now, the completion of your naziris is the taglachas. So that's a mitzvah. Yeah. It's a completion of the naziris. There's a reason I'm saying this was correct. It's a completion of the naziris, and therefore a person that delays completing this naziris with the taglachas, even though it's not ma'akiv, but still it is a mitzvah, and you delay this mitzvah, you're over on Baal Ta'acher. Another pshat. I think this is the fourth pshat of here for what the Baal Ta'acher applies. Marzut Rebbered Rav Mari Amar. Over Baal Ta'acher karbanaisav. Just like we just said that there is at the completion of the Naziris, the Teklachas, there's also at the completion of the Naziris, the Karbanis you have to bring. So just like regarding a Neder, Bal Ta'acha refers to a person that made a Neder to bring a carbon, and he delays bringing his carbon till after 3 Yomim Tovim. So over here as well, the Bal Ta'acha Karbanisov refers also to the Karbanis of a Nazir. Like I mentioned before, he has to bring a Chatas, a Oila, and a Shlamim, and he delays bringing those Karbanis. That's what it applies to. I believe there's a machlokes here between the Ran and the Rosh, according to this pshat, whether he's going to be over Bal Ta'acher, even if he just delays it a little bit. He's going to be over immediately Bal Ta'acher. I believe that's what the Ran says, but the Rosh says that you're not over Bal Ta'acher unless you're going to delay it 3 Yomim Tovim, similar to the Bal Ta'acher by a Neder. Because if we're talking about Karbanis, then it's similar to all Karbanis, where it's only after 3 Yomim Tovim. Frek the Gemara, but if you're saying that what aspect of the Naziris are we talking about? We're talking about the Karbanis, umin hachan afkele. This, that if you delay your Karbanis of the Naziris, you're over Bal Ta'acher, are we learning it from here, from this Hekish that we learn from the Nazir, from a Neder, as the Braisa said? We learn it from a different pasuk. And what is that? This is the pasuk that it says, by the Isra of Bal Ta'acher, there it says, Ki darish yidreshenu. You have it, the pasuk on this side, it says over there, if you make a Neder, lo yisa'acher l'shalmai, don't delay fulfilling your Neder, Ki darish yidreshenu Hashem lekecha mimach. Hashem will seek this out from you. So it says a double lashon, darish yidreshenu, and from this we learn out Elu chatois v'ashamais, that this includes also a carbon chatas and a carbon asham that you delay bringing, that there's also a Bal Ta'acher for this. In other words, the karbanis that a person could decide on his own to donate is a carbon asham, a carbon oila. A chatas and a asham is not something that a person could decide to donate on his own. Chatas and a asham is something that you're obligated to bring for various different reasons. I mean, you have the usual carbon chatas. The person was over and avera b'sheigig. So the pasuk here is adding and saying, darish yidreshenu, even those karbanis that are not something that you decided to donate, but an obligation that you have to bring, if you delay bringing them, you're also over in Bal Ta'acher. So right over here, when we speak about the karbanis of a nazir, so we should say that the same thing applies. The carbon of a nazir is a chatas, a oila, a shlamim, so it's included in the simple drash, the pasuk of Bal Ta'acher that also darshans and includes a chatas and asham that Bal Ta'acher applies. Why do we need a special hekish to say that the Bal Ta'acher applies to the karbanis of a nazir? That says the Gemara, because Ma'od Teime, I would think to say chidishu shechitsha Torah benazir. When it comes to a nazir, we see that there's something novel about a nazir or about the karbanis of a nazir, and I would think that the karbanis of a nazir are not included in the general isser of Bal Ta'acher, and not even in this drasha of darish yidreshenu, and therefore I do need a unique hekish for the karbanis of a nazir. So now the Gemara is going to discuss this point here. What is this unique chiddush that I find regarding Nazir that I would think that it's not included in the general Isser of Bal Ta'acher, and I need a special hektish to say that Bal Ta'acher applies? My chiddush. So what is this chiddush that we find by Nazir? So if you'll say the chiddush is as follows. What's if a person comes and says, I take upon myself to bring a carbon chatas of a Nazir? Will that take effect? Could a person take upon himself to bring such a kind of a carbon through a neder that he says? The answer is no. Loi matvis. A person cannot, it will not take effect. If a person says, I take upon myself to bring a carbon ayla or a carbon shlomim, that he's obligated to bring. But if he says, I take upon myself to bring the carbon chatas of a nazir, that doesn't take effect. So we see there's a certain leniency about this carbon that nobody could accept this upon himself. So therefore, maybe this is the reason I see that something is different, something is novel, there's a more of a leniency regarding this carbon. So who says Bal Ta'acher applies here? Says the Gemara, but that's not a leniency that points out a difference, because hare chatas chaylev. Let's look at other karbanis chatas. We said before chatois v'ashamis, that all other chatois and ashamis are included in Bal Ta'acher. So chatas chaylev. What's chatas chaylev? This is the regular chatas, a regular carbon chatas for a yid that was over on the isser b'shegig. He ate fats that are forbidden. She'ein matfisa b'neder. Nobody could come and say, I take upon myself to bring a carbon chatas. That's also not possible. That won't take effect either. So there's a leniency there as well in this sense. And nevertheless, a person that has the obligation to bring a carbon chatas and delays bringing his carbon chatas, he's over on Bal Ta'acher. So the question still remains, why is nazir, the carbon chatas of a nazir, any different than a regular carbon chatas? Elamai chidushe, says the Gemara, what's unique about a nazir? there's something unique about a nazir that's actually not specifically about the carbon of a nazir, but there's something unique. There's a chiddush that we can find in one of the details of a nazir b'chlal. What is that? I would think to say that what's the chiddush by a nazir? Hoyel v'im omar. Since if a nazir says, Hareini nazir afila min chartzan. A nazir comes and says that I am a nazir from chartzan, which are the seeds, the grape seeds. That's it. I don't want to eat grape seeds. Any other things that a nazir is not allowed to eat, I don't want that nazir. I just don't want to eat grape seeds. What's the halacha? Have a nazir lakoil. He becomes a nazir once he says out of his mouth the words hareini nazir, even though he tries to limit it only from chartzan, he becomes a nazir for everything. Okay, so now this is a unique chiddush that we find by nazir. Usually by a neder, the way a person says his neder, that's how it takes effect. By a nazir, even though he said only from chartzan, nevertheless he becomes a nazir completely. So I see that nazir is unique. Nazir is different. So therefore, maybe I should say that regarding the carbon of a nazir as well, I don't apply the regular bal ta'acher of karbanis to a nazir. So he shouldn't be over in bal ta'acher. Kamash Malon, that's why we need a special hekesh to say that for the carbon of a nazir, you are over in bal ta'acher. But the Gemara doesn't accept this answer for two reasons. First of all, the Gemara says this itself is a machlokes. This is a good answer according to the opinion that says Ki nazir min chartzen, when a person says, I will be a nazir just from the grape seeds, have a nazir lakoil, he becomes a nazir for everything. So you find this unique chiddush regarding a nazir. So that would be true. But Rab Shimon says, a nazir, at sheyazir mikulon. In such a case, you won't be a nazir. You can't come and create your own stipulation and say that you're only going to be a nazir from the chartzen, then you don't become a nazir at all. So you don't find this chiddush that you could become a nazir even though it's different than what you said, that you become a full nazir. So that's number one. So my kalamema, what are you going to say according to him? What is the unique chiddush that you find by a nazir that you would think that bal ta'acher doesn't apply here? Furthermore, the Gemara asks a stronger question here. Hi chiddush, this unique novel thing you pointed out regarding a nazir, l'chumrahu. This is showing that there's a unique stringency regarding a nazir. We're trying to find a unique leniency for a nazir to explain why the lav of bal ta'acher should not apply. And you're showing me a novelty regarding a nazir that's a chumrah. How would that explain why there's a leniency that bal ta'acher does not apply? So we can't say that this is a unique chiddush about a nazir. Ella says the Gemara, my chiddush, what is the chiddush of a nazir? I would think to say, hoyo, since v'im gilach al achas mishloshtan. The leniency and the chiddush that you find regarding a nazir is when it comes to the halacha or the mitzvah or the obligation, as we mentioned before, that you have to shave your hair at the end of the naziris. So when are you supposed to shave your hair? Really, the seder is you're supposed to bring the karbanis, and as I mentioned before, there are three karbanis, chatas, ayla, and shlamim, and then after that you shave the hair. What's if a person didn't do it in the right order? He brought one carbon and then he shaved his hair. In gilach al achas mishloshtan, he only shaved his hair after bringing one carbon, out of order.
It's not going to work.
So yatsa, the halacha is that there's a leniency and you are over. So usually when it comes to karbanis, these kind of things, if you do something out of order with a carbon, so then you got to do it all over. But over here, by the nazir, we find regarding the seder of when the taglachas is supposed to happen, that even though the Torah says that it's supposed to happen after the karbanis, but nevertheless, there's a leniency that even if you bring it only after one of the three karbanis, it also takes effect. The seder of the carbon doesn't matter. So since I see this unique leniency here regarding a nazir, so I would say, loy laver aleb aval tacher. So maybe also this general halacha I find regarding karbanis that you should not delay them, should not apply here either. Kamash Malan, that's why I need a special chiddush, the hekish of a nazir to a neder, to say that bal ta'acher does apply to a nazir. Or the Gemara gives a different answer, and this actually goes back to the first answer that the Gemara tried to give. That a nazir, the carbon of a nazir is different. That I would think that there's no bal ta'acher. And like we said in the beginning, my chidushay, what's unique regarding the carbon of a nazir? Mishom deloy matfisay beneder. Because you cannot take upon yourself to bring this carbon as a neder. So that shows that it's a different kind of a carbon. It's not a regular carbon that you could accept upon yourself. There's sort of this leniency. You could never accept upon yourself to bring this carbon if you're not a nazir. So that's different. Now we had a question on this. The Gemara asked before the question, but chatas chaylev, what's with a regular chatas that's brought for eating fats? Over there it's the same thing. You can't accept upon yourself to bring a chatas. And there, Bal Ta'acher does apply. So why would you say that the carbon of a nazir, which is exactly the same, like every carbon chatas, so why should Bal Ta'acher not apply? So the Gemara explains it's not the same thing. Chatas chaylev, when you bring a chatas for eating fats, you did an aveda b'shegig, and you have to bring a chatas, ka'asya l'chapara. Over there we know what's the reason the Torah is obligating you to bring this carbon. It's you're bringing the carbon in order to bring a kapara for yourself. So that itself is the reason why Bal Ta'acher applies, because you need this kapara. So the fact that you're delaying the kapara of the carbon is why you're over Bal Ta'acher. What chatas nazir, when it comes to the chatas of a nazir, the Torah says at the completion of your naziris, you should bring a carbon chatas. Lamayasya, what is the purpose of this carbon? What is it coming to accomplish? It doesn't say in the Torah what it is that it comes to accomplish. It just tells you that an obligation. When you complete your naziris, bring the carbon. But it doesn't accomplish anything. So therefore over here, without having a special drasha to tell me that Bal Ta'acher applies over here, I would say there's nothing pressing that you must bring it right now. If you're not going to bring it, so you won't complete your naziris today. I'll complete my naziris tomorrow or in a year from now. There's nothing pressing. By a regular carbon chatas, there's the kapara. You did an aveda. The kapara is coming to wipe off that aveda. So therefore there's something pressing that you have to bring it now. Therefore Bal Ta'acher applies. So it's not the same thing. But the Gemara now asks, this is not so simple because there's another kind of carbon chatas. V'hari chatas yeledes. A woman that gives birth also has to bring a carbon chatas. The le'asya lekapara. She doesn't bring this carbon for a kapara. And v'avar ala mishum Bal Ta'acher. And yet, if she delays bringing her carbon chatas, she's also over in Bal Ta'acher. So I already see that Bal Ta'acher regarding a carbon chatas is not only in a case where there's a reason why you have to bring it. It's actually not so simple because just a moment, the Mefarshim discussed that really it's not clear in the Gemara where's the source that a Yeledes that delays bringing her carbon is over in Bal Ta'acher. The Gemara doesn't bring a source for this over here. But whatever the source may be, the Gemara says about a chatas of a woman that gives birth, if she delays it, she's also over on Bal Ta'acher. That seems to be very similar to a nazir. The Ran actually points out that there's an interesting similarity between a nazir and the yeledes. The truth is that both by a nazir and the yeledes, there is a reason that it says why they bring a chatas. What did they do wrong? Why they're bringing a chatas? What aveda is it? So it says regarding a nazir, I think I'll have it over here in the Nedarim as well, later in the Masechta, that a nazir is really a chayta. Person that takes upon himself naziris is a sinner, and therefore he's bringing a chatas to forgive for that. And similar Yeledes, it says that a Yeledes is she swears that she's never going to have children again, and then she does have children again. So this is an aveda that she has to bring a carbon chatas for. But nevertheless, the Ran explains it's not the same like a shegig where you have to bring a chatas for the kapara, for the aveda that the person did. Because a nazir, even though the Gemara does say that it's connected to this chet of the naziris, but it's not always the case. It's not mamish a chet like a shegig. And the same thing with a woman. Not every yeledes it makes a shvur that she's not going to have children again. It's not mamish the same like by a kapara of a real aveda that you could say that is what the objective of the carbon is. So therefore, the carbon of a chatas yeledes and the chatas of a nazir is the same thing. So why do I need a special drasha to say that for the carbon chatas of a nazir, you're going to be over on Bal Ta'acher? So the Gemara answers, no, they're not the same. Because when it comes to a woman that gives birth, what's the point of her bringing a carbon chatas? Only after she brings the carbon chatas could she eat kachim. So therefore, we know the objective of this carbon, and this is something which is very necessary. As the Ram points out, why is it necessary for her to eat kachim? What's if she says, I don't want to eat kachim today, I'll wait? But the answer is no, it's not so. First of all, eating kachim is a mitzvah. Second of all, how about if she has to bring a carbon pesach? Carbon pesach, she can't wait, so that's for the purpose of a mitzvah that she must bring. So therefore, this can't be delayed. Whereas when it comes to the completion of Naziros, so the Ran explains, even though you might say that if you're not going to bring that carbon chatas of your Naziris and you're not going to complete your Naziris, you won't be able to drink wine. You're still going to remain a Nazir. But to that we say, so what? So you won't drink wine. So you'll wait until you drink wine. The Meiri actually adds to that. He says, she won't be able to, or he or she won't be able to make Kiddush. So he said, the Meiri says, Kiddush on wine is only Midirabanan. We're discussing over here Minat Torah. Minat Torah, there's no problem with the fact that you won't be able to drink wine. So I would think that there's no issue with delaying the conclusion of your Naziris. That's why I need a special drasha to say that Bal Ta'acher applies by the carbon of a Nazir as well. Omamar, going back to what it said in the Braisa before, when the Braisa compares Naziris to Nedarim. So it compared it for another aspect as well. So the Braisa said, Uman Nedarim, just like when it comes to Nedarim, Av Meifin Nidre Bitay, a father could annul the vows of his daughter. Or Baal Meifin Nidre Ishtay, a husband could annul the vows of his wife, Af Naziris. So too when it comes to a Nazir, I have a Hekish to teach me that Av Meifin Naziris Bitay, a father could annul the Naziris of his daughter, and Baal Meifin Naziris Ishtay. And a husband could annul the Naziris of his wife. So the Gemara asks, Lomali Hekesha. Why do I need the Torah to write these words and put them together? It's writing extra words near each other, Neder Linder and Nazir Lahazir, or Linder Neder and Nazir Lahazir. It puts them together, special extra words to teach me this. Teisi, why wouldn't I learn this out logically, without the extra words? Bamematzinu. The concept of mematzinu means if I find once in the Torah it says a certain halacha in one case, I logically apply it to another case which is similar. If I see that the Torah says that a father annuls the vows of his daughter, what's Naziris? Naziris is another variation of a vow. So why shouldn't I automatically, logically say that I compare it and say that the same applies to Naziris? I just learn it out logically from the Nedarim. Answers the Gemara, no, logically I would not compare them, because I would say, Dilme, possibly, Gabin Nedarim hu demefer, reason why a father or a husband could annul the vow, Mishum delay islay kitsusa. Because when you make a neder, it doesn't have necessarily an end time. She can make a neder indefinitely. So that's something that we give the father or the husband control to be able to stop this. But when it comes to Naziris, Stam Naziris, a person says Hareini Nazir, even if they don't give it any time limit, but it has an end. It's 30. The Stam Naziris, Lamed Yaim. Stam Naziris is 30 days. 30 days is not the end of the world. Even if the husband or the father will not be able to annul it, after 30 days, it's anyways all over. So I would think that they can't annul this. Kamash Malan. That's why the Torah had to teach me that the husband could annul the vows, even the Naziris of his wife or daughter. Going back to the Mishnah. The Mishnah said, so the Mishnah brought up the concept of the yadais of a neder. So if you remember, the concept of a yad of a neder is when a person said an incomplete sentence of a neder. And what was the lashon that it said in the Mishnah? First the Mishnah said, a person says, mudrani mimcha, mufrishani mimcha, muruchakani mimcha, different expressions that I'm distant from you, I'm separated from you. And then the Mishnah said, shani eichelach, shani taimlach, that I will eat from you or taste something from you. So the Gemara here will explain, I think I mentioned this in the Mishnah, that these two halves of the statement that the Mishnah says go together. Let's see. Shmuel, so Shmuel said, Bekulon, in all of these cases that the Mishnah says here, you have to read it all together. Achi Yoimar, when will this partial statement of the neder take effect? Only if he says it together. Achi Yoimar, Shani Eichalach, Shani Taimlach. If he starts saying, Mudrani Mimcha, or Mufrishani Mimcha, I have a vow from you, or separated from you, and he stops right there, that's not considered to be a yad for a neder. That's not a handle of a neder. Why? Because you haven't specified enough. The yad has to say something. We'll see later in the Gemara. There are different Gedarim exactly how you define a handle of a neder. But the point that Shmuel is saying is just saying mudrani mimcha. You didn't say enough. If you say mudrani mimcha and then you add shani eichelach, I'm making a neder that I will, and the neder applies to what? Regarding this, that I will eat from you, then that will be a neder. And the chiddush here is, even though you didn't conclude clearly the word iser, or you didn't say that you should be to me like a carbon, but nevertheless the neder takes effect. So on this the Gemara asks that we have a Braisa that says not so. Meisvei, the question is, what does it say in the Braisa? Mudarani mimcha, mufreshani mimcha, murchakani mimcha, hareza aser. You use any of these expressions, you become aser. Then the Braisa says, shani eichelach, shani tayimlach, hareza aser. If you say just these words, shani eichelach or shani tayimlach, you become aser as well. So what do you see here in this Braisa? It seems to separate them. The Isser is not only when you say both parts of these statements together. And the Ram points out, the point here is that in the Braisa it uses the term Asr twice. In our Mishnah, when it brought both of these terms, it said the word Asr once at the end. Right? But over here in the Braisa, it says Asr twice. So it seems like we're separating these are two separate statements, and each statement in itself will make the person Asr. And says the Gemara, even here in the Braisa, according to Shmuel, you'll have to say the pshat is hachi ketani. This is how you have to read this Braisa. Bamed dvarim amurim. If a person says mudrani mimcha or mufreshani mimcha, when will he become aser? Ba'oime shani eichelach shani tayim lach. Only if he also adds and explains and says that I will not eat from you, or I will not be tayim from you, or regarding eating from you, regarding being tayim from you, only then. So even in the Braisa, you have to say that it does go together, not two separate statements. But the Gemara now brings another Braisa where it separates these two and it brings it in an opposite order. In another Braisa, it's brought in an opposite order. The first case the Braisa brings is that a person says Shani Yeichalach or Shani Tayim Lach, Aser. When a person says this itself makes him Aser. Then if he says Mudrani Mimcha, Mufreshani Mimcha, Murchakani Mimcha, Hareza Aser, he becomes Aser. So over here, it's hard to say, like we just answered, that you have to connect these two parts of the statement. Because if you connect the two parts of the statement, how do you connect them? First comes Mudrani Mimcha, and then he spells out regarding what? Regarding this, Shani Yeichalach, regarding eating from you. But the Braisa first brings Shani Yeichalach. So it seems like when a person says to his friend, Shani Yeichalach, that itself, what is he saying to him? He's saying, regarding eating from you, I don't want to eat from you. So even though he didn't spell it out, we know that that's what he means. So we can't say like Shmuel said that we connect these two parts of the statement. Hence is the Gemara here as well. We'll have to say the pshat is Tni Hachi. Learn the pshat in the Braisa as follows. Ukvar Omar Mudrani. The Braisa is saying it first starts off that the person says Shani Yeichalach, and then the Braisa adds, and that will only work if he said before he started off his statement by saying first Mudrani, and then he added Shani Yeichalach. So similar to what we said before, that the person says Mudrani Mimach, and then the Braisa adds and says, when does Mudrani Mimach work? Only if you complete and add Shani Yeichalach. Here as well, the Braisa starts first with Shani Yeichalach, and then it says it in the reverse. When will Shani Yeichalach make it Aser if you started off before and said Mudrani Mimach? Then he's going to be Aser. But the Gemara doesn't accept this answer. The Gemara says, Yihachi, if so, Hainu Reisha. What it says in this Braisa is the same like the previous Braisa. The term Reisha the Gemara uses here is not the same like it usually means when it says two parts of one Braisa. This is really two separate Braisas. But what the Gemara is asking is, what it says in this Braisa and what it says in the previous Braisa is the exact same point. And the only difference between these two Braisas is that the first Braisa says it in the normal order. And this Braisa turns it upside down. It makes no sense. Why would the Braisa say the same halacha as it says in the previous Braisa and just say it in a very unusual manner, upside down? This is not the usual way, the way you say it. The Braisa should say it. A person says Mudrani Mimach, you'll only be Yasir if you complete your sentence and say Shani Yeichalach. Why is this Braisa saying it upside down? V'oid, another question is, and this is a question on this Braisa, on the previous Braisa, Asr Lamali. Why does it say in both of these Braisas the term Aser twice? Shmuel, when he explained our Mishnah that the only time there's a yad is when you put together the two parts of the sentence. In our Mishnah, it only said Aser once. In the Braisa here, when it brings these two parts, it says Aser twice. So if it says Aser twice, that indicates that we're talking about two separate statements. So Aser lam li lemisni. Ella. So therefore, the Gemara Taka switches this and says, Amar Shmuel. What Shmuel said is as follows. Taime the Omar Sha'ani Eichalach Sha'ani Tayim Lach. If the person said the full statement, he said the beginning, Mudrani Mimach, Mufreshani Mimach, and he added also Sha'ani Tayim Lach and Sha'ani Eichalach Sha'ani Tayim Lach. If he said the whole full sentence, so then what's going to happen is Hu the Aser v'Chavere Muter. He is going to be Aser to have any benefit from his friend. That's what he's saying with his neder, that I'm Aser to eat from you, but your friend will be able to eat from you. Because you spelled out clearly. What do you mean with your neder? That you're Aser to eat from your friend. Not that your friend is Aser to eat from you, he's allowed to eat from you. Aval, however, according to what it says in the Braisa. So the Gemara proved clearly from the Braisa, even if you just say one part of the sentence, Mudrani Mimcha, Mufreshani Mimcha, just that alone, the neder will take effect. But over there, it'll take effect in a different way. And interestingly, it'll actually take effect in a more stringent way. Aval amma mudrani heimach luchadei. If a person just says mudrani heimach, that I become a neder from you, and he doesn't add anything else, what's going to happen then is shneyen asurin. Both of them will be aser from each other. Not only will he be aser to have anah from his friend, but his friend will be aser to have anah from you. Since you didn't spell out clearly sha'ani oichalach, what happens now is there's actually a few pshatim in the Rishonim how to explain this. One of the pshatim, and the way the Rosh explains this is, when you say medrani and mimach, it includes both. You're just saying, a neder between me and you. In which direction? What did you mean to say? Did you mean to say to your friend, I don't allow you to have a nar from me? Or did you mean to say, I can't have a nar from you? It means both. It includes both together. Mudrani mimach. There's a neder between me and you. So therefore the neder is going to be actually in both directions. That's how the Rosh explains it. Shnei masurin. Ki hada amar Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina, like Rabbi Yosef bar Chanina said, mudrani emach, shnei masurin. You just say these two words, mudrani emach, then they both become asur. That's the chiddush that it says here in the Braisa. Okay.